Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're looking at something that's been everywhere, the Carroll case against Trump.
Yeah.
And we're going beyond just, the straight news this time. We're going to look at how people are actually reacting to it all.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, so we found this Reddit thread discussing an ABC News article about the case, and I thought, wow, this is perfect. It's not every day we get to see, raw public opinion laid out like that.
That's a great point, and it really adds a whole other dimension to understanding this ruling, especially with Trump, about to start his second term.
It's quite the backdrop, isn't it?
It is.
So just so everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
The Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals just upheld the original jury verdict that found Trump liable for both sexual abuse and defamation.
Exactly, and that verdict from the first trial awarded Carroll $5 million in damages.
$5 million.
Which is important to remember because there's actually another separate civil trial where he was ordered to pay $83 million. That was still under appeal, though. So, yeah, there's a lot going on legally.
Okay, so it sounds like Trump's lawyers weren't just going to take that first verdict lying down. They appealed, right?
Oh, yeah, they definitely appealed.
Yeah.
They argued that the judge in the original trial made some errors, like allowing testimony from two other women, Jessica Leeds and Natasha Stoynoff, who also accused Trump of assault.
I see.
And they also challenged the use of the Access Hollywood tape as evidence.
Oh, right, that tape.
The one that I think we all remember.
Yeah, pretty hard to forget.
But the appeals court pretty much shut those arguments down.
Really?
Yeah, they basically said, nope, those arguments don't hold water.
Oh, wow.
And they were especially firm about the Access Hollywood tape. They stated that the jury was completely justified in using it to assess Trump's patterns of behavior.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the court's opinion even specifically said that based on Trump's own words in that recording, a jury could reasonably conclude that he's someone who kisses women without consent and then, touches them inappropriately.
So they were pretty clear on that.
Very clear.
And so this brings us to the public reaction, which is where this Reddit thread gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, some of the language is really strong.
I can imagine.
Which I think just shows you how charged this whole topic is.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of distrust directed at Trump and his supporters. It's palpable in the comments.
It makes you think, though, is it purely about the legal case, or are we seeing people's pre-existing political feelings kind of bleed into this situation? Because that's a crucial part of what we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
Recognizing how our own biases shape how we see things, even something like a legal proceeding.
Definitely, we're witnessing confirmation bias play out in real time.
It is fascinating.
Right, and some of these comments really highlight that. One person just straight up said they clapped and cheered.
Wow.
It's like a stark example of how differently people view Trump and his actions.
That comment really stood out to me, too, because it raises a question we all need to consider. How can a group of people see behavior that a court defines as sexual abuse and react with, essentially approval?
Right.
That's not about legal technicalities anymore. That's about completely different moral frameworks.
It is kind of unsettling.
It is.
And then there's this whole other layer of the discussion focusing on the media's role in covering all this.
Oh, yeah.
You've got people saying the media is obsessed with Trump, hanging on his every word. And then others are like, hold on, it's important to hold powerful people accountable.
That's a classic tension, isn't it?
Yeah.
It speaks to that broader debate we're having as a society about responsible journalism in this age of 24/7 news and social media. Where's the line between keeping the public informed and, potentially just stirring up controversy for clicks?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It really is.
But going back to those individual comments, there's one that really got me. It said something like, "This sort of thing ain't my bag, baby." Now on the surface, it just seems so out of place, almost funny in a way. But in a discussion about something as serious as sexual abuse, it really made me pause.
Yeah, it's almost like this attempt to distance oneself from the issue through humor.
Right.
And, that reaction itself is fascinating.
Yeah.
Does it reflect apathy, maybe a feeling of being overwhelmed by the constant stream of scandals? Or could it even be a coping mechanism, a way to deflect from something that feels just too heavy to face head on?
I think it's probably a mix of both, to be honest. It's like we're all bombarded with so much information these days. It's easy to just shut down when something feels too intense or complicated.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
And there's definitely a lot of anxiety around this whole case. Some people are even worried about potential threats or violence against the judges.
Really?
Especially because the ruling was released per curiam, meaning the judges didn't actually attach their names to it,
Oh, right.
which some are interpreting as a sign they might be concerned for their safety.
Wow, yeah, I hadn't even considered that. But it makes you wonder if this case is just a symptom of something much bigger, you know?
Absolutely.
Like this whole erosion of trust in institutions, this growing polarization where it feels like we can't even agree on basic
A
facts.
dangerous trend.
It is. It's like we're on the edge of something we don't fully understand yet.
I agree.
But stepping back from that for a second, this ruling obviously has huge implications for Trump's second term, right?
It does. There's no precedent for this. A president-elect found liable for sexual abuse and defamation? It's completely uncharted territory.
It is.
And it raises so many questions about how this will affect his ability to govern effectively. Not to mention the potential for abuse of power.
Exactly. And some of the comments in the Reddit thread really focused on those bigger issues,
Oh, yeah.
abuse of power, the erosion of democratic norms. It's like this case just brings all these underlying anxieties to the surface.
It's a lightning rod.
It is. But it's also important to remember that this isn't just about politics. A lot of the comments also highlighted the broader issue of sexual assault.
Right.
And the importance of believing survivors.
Absolutely.
In a way, this case is forcing us to have this much-needed conversation about power dynamics, consent, and accountability.
And that conversation goes way beyond the courtroom.
Absolutely. There's another comment that I keep coming back to. It said, he's not afraid to do what everyone's thinking.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty cynical statement, but it suggests that some people actually see Trump's behavior as acceptable, maybe even desirable, despite what the court ruled.
And that's what makes this so challenging.
Yeah.
It's not just about one legal case. It's about confronting these deeply held beliefs and attitudes.
Yeah.
I mean, if a portion of society views behavior that's been deemed unacceptable by the courts as something to admire or emulate, it really makes you question what kind of role model Trump represents.
Especially for younger generations. It's like we're dealing with two completely separate realities here. You have the court's reality based on evidence and legal precedent, and then this other reality playing out online where people are interpreting everything through their own biases.
It's hard to see how those two realities can ever truly reconcile.
Right. It's a stark reminder that winning in court doesn't automatically lead to societal change.
It doesn't.
And that's why this case is so important to unpack. It's not just about what happened in the courtroom. It's about understanding the deeper cultural and social forces at play.
I completely agree.
It really makes you wonder what kind of lasting impact this will have on Trump's second term.
Yeah.
Will it embolden his supporters, alienate his critics, or will it just fade into the background noise of the never-ending political drama?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And to be honest, I don't have the answer.
Neither.
But one thing's for sure. This case exposes the deep divisions within our society.
Yeah.
And the outcome will likely have ripple effects for years to come.
And it makes me think about what happens next legally. Could Trump appeal to a higher court, drag this out even longer?
He could.
Could he try to use his presidential powers to influence the situation? Or maybe, it just becomes another chapter in the endless Trump saga.
It's hard to say, but even if it disappears from the headlines, it's important to remember that this case has implications that go far beyond Trump himself.
Right.
It's part of a wider societal reckoning with sexual assault and holding powerful men accountable. The outcome of this case, the discussions surrounding it, all of it, contributes to shaping our culture's definition of acceptable behavior, how we support survivors, what justice actually means.
It's about so much more than just one man.
It is. It's about societal norms, power dynamics, the pursuit of justice.
And that conversation is far from over.
It's just beginning, really.
Right.
It's a microcosm of the bigger challenges we face as a society. Polarization, misinformation, struggling to find common ground. And it's a wake-up call that even with legal rulings, true justice and reconciliation require something much deeper. We need understanding empathy, a willingness to have tough conversations even when they're uncomfortable.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground here. We went deep on the court ruling, explored those raw public reactions on Reddit, and talked about the wider implications for American politics and society as a whole.
You did.
This is heavy stuff.
It is. There are no easy answers here.
No easy answers, that's for sure. And at this point, I think it's important to kind of pause and bring it back to you, the listener.
Right.
What are you taking away from all this? What resonates most with you? Is it the court's strong stance against Trump's arguments, the raw emotions we saw on Reddit, Or maybe it's that unsettling feeling that this case is a sign of something much bigger going on in our society.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's clear that this case is really forcing us to reflect.
It is.
Questioning our assumptions, examining our own biases, and really thinking about the kind of future we want to build together.
Because, as we've seen, public opinion is so divided on this.
It is.
Some see the ruling as justice being served, holding Trump accountable.
Right.
Others see it as a political witch hunt. And then there are those who are just exhausted by it, all tuning it out as just another day in the political circus.
And that's really the challenge, isn't it?
It is.
To move beyond these entrenched positions and find a way to have a more nuanced, more empathetic conversation.
But that takes work.
It does.
Real effort. It means listening to perspectives we disagree with, trying to understand where those views are coming from.
Absolutely.
It's a tall order, I know.
It is.
But it feels essential if we want to move forward as a society.
Right. Yeah.
Shouting at each other across the divide clearly isn't working.
No, it's not.
We need to bridge that gap, have the hard conversations, and maybe find some common ground.
And that starts with each of us,
Yeah.
It takes patience, humility, a willingness to look inward and challenge our own biases.
But honestly, what's the alternative?
Right.
A society consumed by distrust and animosity? That's not sustainable for anyone. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. We've talked about the legal stuff, the political fallout, all that.
Right.
But what about the personal impact? How does this all make you feel? What does it say about us, our values, who we are at our core?
And maybe even more importantly, what does it inspire you to do?
Yeah.
How can we as individuals, as communities, contribute to building a society that's more equitable, more compassionate?
These are big questions.
They are.
No easy answers.
But, sometimes just asking the questions is a step in the right direction.
So keep thinking, keep talking, and keep pushing for that better tomorrow.
We'll love that.
Huge thanks to our expert for all the insights and to you, the listener, for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.